You know, we've all imagined it, at least once, haven't we? A small, super cozy corner cafe. The smell of fresh, richly roasted coffee drifting right out into the crisp morning air. You've got this line of loyal customers who know your name and you know their standard order by heart. It's just this beautiful, romantic dream, building a whole business around something as simple and universally loved as selling a daily drink. I mean, it really feels like a guaranteed, foolproof path to being your own boss while literally serving up happiness in a cup.
But, well, behind that romantic, highly idealized image is a pretty harsh reality that most first-time owners never, ever see coming. Because a cafe, it's not just a coffee shop. It is a highly sensitive machine where thousands of tiny daily decisions determine whether you build a profitable business or just watch your life savings completely disappear. Actually, the industry faces a staggering 74% failure rate. So behind every beautiful, perfectly poured $5 coffee sitting on the counter hides a brutal, really unforgiving question. How much of that money actually stays in your pocket?
Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are going to look way beyond the fancy latte art and the aesthetic Edison lighting. We're going to break down the actual economics, the incredibly high-stakes financial reality, and the totally complex mechanics of running a coffee shop. I promise you, by the end of this, you will absolutely never look at your local cafe the same way again.
Section 1. The Coffee Margin Illusion. A very dangerous trap.
Every single year, thousands of passionate people open up cafes, hoping to create their own little slice of success. They look at Starbucks, they see these independent coffee shops packed with people every single morning, and they think to themselves, coffee is a daily habit. People literally need it to function. I mean, how hard can it be? And that assumption? That creates one of the biggest, most dangerous traps in the entire restaurant world. Because on paper, coffee looks like an absolutely incredible business model. The raw product cost is surprisingly low. When you add up the beans, the milk, the cup, the lid, the syrup, the whole shebang might cost less than a single dollar. This creates what's known as the Latte Illusion, an incredibly seductive 85% gross margin that makes first-time owners honestly think cafes just print money.
So, here is the fundamental trap. New owners completely confuse product margin with business profit. The coffee itself? Oh yeah, for sure. It has a wonderfully high, super attractive margin. It's honestly one of the best product economics you'll find in food service. But the business behind the coffee? That operates on a completely different, immensely complex and brutally unforgiving equation. You aren't just selling beans and hot water. You are funding a massive, living ecosystem.
Section 2. The Hidden Cost Structure. What happens before the doors even open?
To really understand that ecosystem, we have to look at the hidden cost structure. Long before your very first customer even walks in, money is just pouring out. A cafe requires an intense amount of preparation and really specialized infrastructure. Just think about the sheer avalanche of setup costs. To prep a location, you need commercial plumbing, heavy-duty electrical work, specialized ventilation, interior design, city permits, and then there's the equipment. A single professional espresso machine alone can cost thousands upon thousands of dollars. Add in commercial grinders, refrigeration units, point-of-sale systems, custom furniture. All told, owners are looking at a brutal $80,000 to $300,000 entry barrier just to unlock the front doors on day one.
So what anchors all of these massive costs? The lease. This is the single expense that literally decides the future of most cafes. A bad location will utterly destroy a good business, no matter how mind-blowingly amazing your coffee tastes. But on the flip side, a great location with high foot traffic, that can transform a totally average business into a highly lucrative one. The difference between runaway success and total failure is so often decided by the exact lease you signed, simply because high rent will relentlessly compress whatever profit you manage to make on those coffees.
Section 3. Surviving the empty hours. The true test of a cafe.
Okay, let's say you've got the perfect location, you've bought that incredibly expensive machine, and you are finally open for business. Now you face the grueling reality of daily operations. Where does all that beautiful 85% margin from the $5 coffee actually go? Well, the answer is simple: people, space, and maintaining the machine. You see, the true test of a cafe isn't how well you handle a super long line of eager customers. The true test is how you survive the hours when literally no one is there. Because these expenses, they are relentless. They never take a break. A cafe might sell hundreds of drinks early in the morning, but it needs employees fully prepped and ready long before anyone arrives. And even when the cafe is completely empty at, say, 3 p.m., the rent continues, the electricity continues, the monthly equipment payments continue. To survive, you have to ruthlessly control every single cost surrounding the coffee, constantly battling the severe, ongoing compression of your profit by labor and rent.
Section 4. The Morning Rush Trap.
battling the clock.
Which brings us to a really fascinating paradox. The absolute biggest hidden enemy of any cafe isn't bad coffee. It isn't even necessarily a bad location. The biggest enemy is time itself. Time is what drains the bank account. Think about how this builds across a standard operating day. Most cafes are open for around 12 hours. You have staff working that entire time. You are paying rent and utilities for that entire time. Basically, you are paying for a full 12-hour window of existence. But, and here's the kicker, customer arrivals are almost entirely dictated by a hyper-condensed 4-hour morning rush window.
This means cafes suffer from an incredibly dangerous operational imbalance. You get this massive, overwhelming spike in volume during a short morning rush. Most cafes literally make the vast majority of their survival money in just a few short hours before people head into the office. And the rest of the day, midday and afternoon, the volume just drops right off a cliff. So you're paying out of pocket for 12 hours of operation, but you only really have about 3 or 4 hours to rake in enough money to cover the entire day's expenses. It is an incredibly, incredibly tightrope to walk.
Section 5. The business behind the coffee.
So knowing all of this, knowing the massive upfront entry barrier, the relentless daily expenses, and this brutal imbalance of time, how on earth does anyone actually survive? Well, the owners who actually thrive in this environment have to completely pivot their mindset. They have to master the psychology and the hardcore strategy of the business. The cafes that beat the odds understand a fundamental secret. They are not just selling coffee. They are selling a habit. They are selling a highly curated, comfortable space between home and work. They're selling a comforting morning ritual and a deeply personal experience. I mean, customers rarely choose a coffee shop just because it has the absolute cheapest drink, right? They choose the place they want to return to day after day after day. That is exactly why successful cafes invest so heavily in their atmosphere, their branding, and creating just a flawless customer experience. They are locking in a daily habit.
And that brings us to the core operational literacy required to actually make it in this industry. Owning a cafe looks so wonderfully simple from the outside. Just buy coffee, make drinks, sell drinks. But as we've seen today, behind every successful cafe is a highly complex, fiercely managed business system. The owners who beat that 74% failure rate, they aren't just passionate about roasting profiles and bean origins. They possess a deep, rigorous operational literacy. They understand the numbers inside and out, they deeply understand their customers' psychology, and they relentlessly control the system.
So the next time you walk into a beautifully designed corner cafe, smell that amazing fresh roast, and hand over your $5, take a quick look around. The difference between a cafe that becomes a beloved, lasting community landmark and one that quietly closes its doors within a few years is rarely just about the drink in your cup. The real magic and the real survival relies entirely on the invisible machine running right behind the counter. So I'll leave you with this to think about. When you buy your next morning latte, are you really just paying for the coffee, or are you paying for the business behind the coffee?